From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
Here's your number in Kingman, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, thank you, operator.
One moment.
Jake Kessler.
Johnny Dollar, Jake.
So you found out I was right. You've left our fair state of Arizona and gone back to Hartford.
Wrong.
Huh? You mean you're still at Lake Mojave Resort?
I sure am.
And I'm still betting that you haven't found anything to indicate Elmer Hobbs' death wasn't accidental drowning.
Jake.
So your expenses will have to come right out of your own pocket instead of the company.
Listen.
As for that crow you talked about eating, how do you want it cooked?
Listen, will you?
What?
Have you mailed in the insurance claim yet?
Oh, I was just about to run it over to the post office when your call came in.
Tear it up.
What?
Because, Jake, Elmer Hobbs was murdered.
Bob Bailey in the exciting adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account.